We rolling? Is you rolling? So I think the cycle that a person typically goes through is that whenever we get into something new, whether it's a new job or a new relationship or a new routine, in the beginning there's a lot of eagerness, a lot of excitement, and a lot of willingness to just learn and dive right in, putting in the work, getting into the groove, and just really trying to prove to ourselves and to others that we're in it, we're all in. And I think eventually we get into a groove where we become decent or good at whatever that endeavor is. And what happens? We get comfortable. We start to feel like we know what to do, kind of what the expectations are. And from there, we just kind of cruise. And I know that this obviously doesn't apply to everyone. There are a lot of people out there that are very self aware and highly self motivated. But I would say that, you know, I know that there are a lot of people out there, myself included, that, we just kind of fall into this complacency cycle, whether we realize it or not. And, a lot of times we don't realize it. We don't realize it until like a major life event happens, whether that's getting laid off from a job and, you have no money, or your partner breaks up with you because time and time and again, you don't listen to them, or you just kind of, whatever the reason is, in their eyes, you just failed as a partner. So I think a lot of times, because we don't see it coming, it really does take, failing hard at something or hitting rock bottom before we kind of get that wake up call and just kind of look back and realize, like, holy shit, we've been in this cycle of complacency, and this entire time we didn't even really see it. So the question becomes, how do we know what we don't know? And I think there's a few points that I want to make here that would hopefully kind of guide you into recognizing some of these signs that you might be in a complacency cycle. The first point I would say is to recognize some of the comments and feedback that you've been getting from the people around you and in your environment. And I don't necessarily mean like comments you get on, your Instagram, or, haters just like hating on you. But, for example, it could be a comment from a girlfriend or a boyfriend on how they constantly say things like, oh, I don't feel heard because XYZ, or you never do XYZ. Or, it could be feedback from your boss about, hey, I've noticed that recently your performance has been declining. And I think what's important to realize here is that these comments and feedback, they're just information for you. They're just information, they're just data, they're just someone else's opinion. And, however you choose to interpret that information is up to you, right? So, if someone is saying like, oh, hey, you suck at like basketball, and you don't care about basketball, you just, play it for fun, you play it for, exercise. And, if being really good at basketball isn't something that you value, then great. Like, the feedback that you've gotten that you suck at basketball is just information, right? So obviously, like, if you don't care that much about it, you're not you're not gonna act on it. However, say if you value the relationship that you have with your partner, and they give you feedback about, whatever, like a lack of like communication or transparency, then, um, in that case, you would want to take that feedback seriously and kind of like game plan, like what you can do to improve because it matters to you. So, yeah, act accordingly to what's important to you and what you value, and not act out of trying to people please. The second point is to review your goals or New Year resolutions, or some of the things that you wanted to accomplish, and see where you are in relation to those things. And personally, I struggle with this a lot. I love setting goals. They really motivate me and they inspire me, and it's just something that I can look forward to and work towards. And on top of that, like writing down goals is very helpful for me because I'm naturally an overthinker. So having so many thoughts in my head, it really like jumbles the thought process. So having something on paper makes it more visual and kind of unload some of the burden from my mind onto paper. But I would say, like, for me, one area would be like fitness related. Whether that reaching a certain like strength goal, or getting an X number hours of sleep, or working out 3 to 4 times a week. Like, these are things that are important to me, and I often fall short. And I think the trick that I kind of play on myself is, because of complacency, in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, well, I worked out 2 times this week. That's better than zero. It's better than doing nothing. And that is true. That is very true. I'm not denying that. But I think more often than not, I use that as a cop out, as a, well, I worked out already this week, so I get to check off the box. But I know deep down that for me to reach my goals and be where I want to be, it's gonna require more than just like a maintenance dose to keep me cruising. And I'm not talking about dose like drugs, okay? I'm talking about like dose as an effort. Like, say working out, like working out 2 times a week, will like maintain my current level of fitness, but it's not gonna make me, be where I want to be in terms of like being like much more stronger and much more fit or whatever. So I know that if I was a little bit more intentional toward these goals that are important to me, I would get closer to these goals, and not just kind of maintaining my current position. If I was more intentional, I would be able to work out, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But instead, I often find myself, watching like Narcos while, eating dinner. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll just watch Netflix, while I eat my meal. But what happens is, like, I would finish my meal, and then like I would go on and watch like, 1 or 2 or 3 more episodes. So I'm just saying, man, drug shows are the shit. So yeah, I think that's why it's so important to constantly be assessing and reassessing where you are, and like, where you stand, because it's just information. Like, it's just data. It's not right or wrong. It's simply just a presentation of the results of all the actions that you've taken up until this point. It doesn't lie. So whether you are satisfied or not satisfied with the information that's presented to you, at least you will know where you stand, and that you know like how you will need to adjust your day to day or your routines and habits so that you can get closer to your goals. And the third point is to really just take a moment and ask yourself, what are some things that have been bringing you unhappiness, or just like a moment of like a sigh, like like whenever you think about those things. Like, is going to your 9 to 5 job bringing you a lot of dread every single morning? Are you beating yourself up every month when you look at your budget or like your credit card bill, and just kind of like bring yourself down for like mindlessly blowing your disposable income on some useless like stuff you got off of Amazon? And for me, I would say it mainly revolves around my business and my fitness. I feel like my inconsistency and complacency in these areas has really not like, it hasn't gotten me to where I want to be at the rate that I want to go. Because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times, in my mind, it would be like, well, okay, like I worked on these things like a few times this week, or like, X number of hours this week already. So therefore, like, I'm good, but I know that, again, like it's just a lot of times it's just like maintaining, like where I am instead of propelling me forward. Like say if you wanted to get like a PS5 next month, right? And it costs $500. Like, you're not really gonna make much progress if you're just saving like, like $50, within your next couple paychecks if you want to buy that PS5 next month. Like, you're gonna have to put in a lot more focus and find different ways to get there. Whether that's making more money, and saving more money, and just getting creative. Rice and beans and rice, like every meal. Instead of just like, oh well, I'm just gonna like change just like one variable and just do a little bit and then like call it a day. Like, sure, like eventually you will be able to get that PS5, but it's gonna be a while. And I think for me, like, I don't have the patience to, really want to wait around that long to see result, because honestly, like, it's just not fast enough for me. And deep down, I know that I can do way more, way faster. So, in a sense, it's like when I'm complacent in these areas, I just feel like I'm not living up to anywhere near my full potential. Complacency is killing us because we do just enough to get by and be comfortable and to stay in our safe space. And yet, nothing is urgent enough or demanding enough that makes us, feel uneasy and recognize that we need to do things differently. It's kind of like that frog in a pot example. I'm sure you guys heard of it, but basically, it's like you put frogs in a pot of water and you slowly heat up that pot of water. That water just warms up a little bit by a little bit, every second, every minute. So the frog's body temperature, they don't really notice the big change. So as time goes on, the water gets hotter and hotter, but the frog doesn't really see anything out of the ordinary. They don't really feel anything out of the ordinary, until to a point where the water gets so hot where it's boiling, and the frog is basically like cooked alive, and it gets killed. So that's kind of like how I see complacency is that, it's just slowly wasting us away. So unless we are very proactive and aware and managing it, then we, just might become the frog. So learn to become more aware of your surroundings and the feedback that people give you and the feedback of your environment. And most importantly, becoming self aware. And I think the easiest way to start doing that is to just jot down like some of the things that you want in your life, whether that's experiences or actual like physical things or the people that you want in your life or how you want to develop on a personal level, whether that's like improving your speaking abilities or whatever it is, social skills. Just jot it down and really ask yourself the question of what do you want in your life without adding in the circumstances and all the reasons why you can't do it. Until next time.